They went and recruited the guys. They're like, oh, you guys need to come hear this. Good morning. What amazing, wonderful, good service this morning. I was just telling Pastor, I was sitting over there, and it was just a holy moment for me just to hear everyone singing. I had not heard that song, plunged I wrote it down because it struck me. The part where sinners plunged beneath the flood, lose all their guilty stains. I had not heard that song. And I grew up in the church. I've been in the church all my life, and you feel like, oh, I've heard all the songs. And it just was so good singing together. And thank you for having me. So we're going to go here for probably about 30, 40 minutes. And we're going to record this and include this so that folks that want to be part of the Imagine initiative that we're doing here at Rich Pond can click on it, bounce around, and find out some smart ways that they can give and be part of what the growth that we see and the improvements and the building and the just to enhance our ability to do more. As I was coming in, I was listening to some podcast and just kind of, listen to some YouTube-y type stuff. And I've been struck more and more that there is a renaissance of folks who are seeing Jesus in a way that they've never seen. And folks, podcasters, YouTubers, that you'll see their tweets and you can see that they are learning and seeing that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And I believe that we are going to see people returning to our churches and our churches filling up because people need the good news and they need the truth. And I'm so excited. It was so full this morning, Pastor. I can only imagine what 11 o'clock is going to look like. We overflow, right? I'm so excited for you guys to overhaul, improve, and build this sanctuary so that it can reach more people in this community with that good news. And I'm glad I can be a part of it. Your testimony was so good this morning. And it just speaks to what this building is, just a place to bring all of us together and to do the ministry that they've done in your life for 30 years. It was just such a tremendous testimony. Thank you for that. I've got my presentation here. We're going to kind of jump real far ahead in it, just so you know. I'll tell you just a little bit of background on the Kentucky Baptist Foundation. Pastor hit on it. We have an endowment that we manage that benefits this church, but we have over 1,000 accounts. We're 80 years old, and as of last week, we had $280 million assets under management. And what Dr. Harmon loves to share even more is that over $50 million over our history has gone back out to ministry. And that continues to grow and grow and grow of the ministry impact that we're able to be a part of. I'm happy to answer any specific questions. I don't think this is the best venue for us to have just a pure Q&A. I'm going to be available at 11 o'clock, I believe, in the grand hallway or room 204. Room 204. And then also, if you're watching this video, you can just call the foundation and speak with me if you have specific questions. My phone number, I'm just going to say it. It's right, 502-489-3426. You can either call that's my direct line, and our front office is 502-489-3426. 3533. I think that's on your paper. But you can call either one and get a hold of me. So I'm going to jump down to what is a legacy gift. I'm going to skip. I love to talk about generosity. My grandfather was a pastor, and he was a pastor, and then he ended up being the financial pastor for a church. And he taught me so much about generosity, and I love talking about it. And I'll just say one thing is that the generosity that we operate in is just a response to the love that God gave first. And he reached out to us. He sent his only begotten son. I thought it was so interesting. We read John 3, 10 through 15 this morning. And we didn't even get to John 3:16. I was like, oh, it was right there. But I forgot how great John 3, 5 through 10 is. That was so good. But he loved us. So let's talk about legacy gifts. A lot of things that we're going to talk about. We are going to talk about, just for a second, things you can put in the offering plate. Okay, an outright gift. We're going to talk about that first. But a lot of times when we're talking about smart giving or legacy giving, we're talking about things that are not just cash that you can, or a check that you can drop in the offering plate. Assets takes into account just your estate plan, tax smart giving, and it may require help. You may say, you know what, I know that I want to give. I think there's this way to give. Can you help me? And that's where the Kentucky Baptist Foundation can help. I tell all my pastors, I say, if somebody comes to you and says, I heard we could give through our IRA, or there's something called a charitable gift annuity, and the answer is, tell them yes, and then call me, and I'll help you do it, because we can help people give to our churches. And so one of the things you have to think about is, whenever you think about our assets, the next slide, is so much of what we end up with, especially as we reach more towards the end of our lives, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, is that our cash ends up being less and less. I mean, how many of us, our biggest asset is our home? I know that's true for me right now in my 40s, but my life insurance, retirement account. For many of us that are out here, we have family farms, we have land, we have a business that we've built our whole life. And that's where a lot of the net worth and value is, but we only think about giving 10% of the 9% so much, right? And there's a lot of smart tax giving and big giving and significant giving, and there is no insignificant gift. I want to reiterate that. Whether it's $2 or $2 million, God's going to call all of us to be obedient in a different way based on where we are right now. But there's a lot of ways to give significantly large gifts in tax smart ways. Next slide. Usually we just do it under cash, but next slide, it talks about we want God to be over all of it, and we want to be a good steward over all those things. So let's get down to outright gift, because I really want to hit on a couple. We're going to talk about 6 smart ways to give. And this is the one that we're most familiar with, and that is just dropping cash in the offering plate. But also, it can be giving a current gift. And this is going to be the way that a lot of us participate in this Imagine right now, is that we're going to make a commitment, perhaps increase our giving, and say we want to invest in the church because we want to invest in what God's doing in this community. But you even talked about it in your covenant agreement with each other, that it's about reaching our community, but also reaching around the world. And you want to be a part of that, and so you're going to invest in that with your current cash. So how to make an outright gift of full ownership, no strings attached. Designated or undesignated, I have very strong opinions on designated versus undesignated. And as an attorney who's represented a lot of churches, I significantly appreciate the undesignated gift, okay? If God's spoken to you about supporting the worship or supporting children or youth or a specific ministry or an outreach, by all means, be obedient to that. But when you give the leadership, the deacons, the elders, the pastor team, the leadership to do what God needs to do most, and that can have a great impact. And I mean, we have the stories where someone gave a gift so that they could put purple carpet in the sanctuary. Nobody else wanted purple carpet, okay? That's not a good designated gift. If you're passionate about reaching our children, being part of VBS over time or whatever, that's a good designated gift. And this is a designated campaign where we're giving to the capital improvement of our campus. But as you think about your estate giving, significant gifts, if you have a windfall through business, truly consider leaving that undesignated so that the church can use that in the future where it's needed most. I want to talk, cash, stocks, next slide, bonds, mutual funds, life insurance policies. We'll talk about insurance in a second, real estate. I want to highlight two up there on that list, and that is stocks and real estate. Probably the two most important things I'm going to talk about today for those that want to participate in this Imagine campaign is this next concept of giving appreciated assets, stocks or real estate, and IRA giving, which I'll get to in a second. So if you're only going to pay attention, or if we're going to put a bookmark on the YouTube video, let's put it here. And that is on appreciated asset giving. So let's go to the next slide. And that is whenever you get a tax deduction equal to the market value, but you you avoid the capital gain. So let's look at the example on the next slide. So the classic example, you can either think of that as a $100,000 stock or a $100,000 piece of property. It says property up there, but it's an appreciated asset. It's worth more today than when we got it, okay? And you can see that the basis is $50,000. When we say basis, what we mean is that's how much it was worth when I bought the property, when I bought the Amazon stock or the Exxon stock. I paid $50,000 for the property. It's worth $100,000 now, okay? If you give appreciated asset worth $100,000, well, let's go to the right side first. If you were to sell that and get $100,000 cash, you could do that. You could sell the property, you could cash in the stock, and you have $100,000 in your bank account. And if you give that, let's assume a 25% income tax savings for a tax-deductible gift. And so the after-tax cost of the gift is $75,000, okay? The tax deductibleness saved you about $25,000 that we could say the government didn't get to tax you on, okay? If instead you would have given a $100,000 appreciated asset, you actually give the stock or you give the property to the church, you would typically, and this is, let me kind of talk about this. If you would have sold it for $100,000, that $50,000 in gain is taxed. That's called capital gains tax. And so it's taxed at a little bit lower rate, either 15 to 20%, but you still have to pay taxes on it, okay? But if you give the appreciated asset, you get a $100,000 gift and you avoid that capital gains tax of $7,500. Thus, you're able to make an even bigger impact by giving an appreciated asset because you get the full gift, you get to claim the full gift, $100,000, And then what you might have been taxed on for that $50,000 gain goes away. So stock giving, appreciated stock, there's not a benefit for giving stock that's worth less today than it was before, okay? Appreciated property or property that's maybe been in the family, it's just sitting out there, you haven't done anything with it, those would be smart ways to give big gifts. Also, for business owners or those who are receiving stock grants and they're part of a big, where a company does an IPO or the company is sold and there's a large gain for that year. This is outside of the campaign. Giving some of that appreciated stock could be a really smart way to give a big gift and avoid some significant taxes. So let me say it in one other way. If you have appreciated assets, typically stock or property, and you want to give a significant gift to this campaign, rather than pulling it out of your bank account, there may be a smarter way to give an appreciated asset. It is probably something you want to sit down with me and talk about, or talk to your financial advisor and see if that's a smart way to give rather than pulling directly out of your bank account. But there are tax savings to be had, okay? Do you kind of get just like, nod your head even if you don't understand. No, I'm kidding. All that to say, for some of you that clicked and for some that watch it, or here's the other thing. I know that many of you are going to be perhaps having conversations. You're going to hear things. Pastor people are going to come to you and say, I want to participate, and it might click, and you can point them to us, or we can help in some way, okay? And that's one of the two biggest things I want to point out today of a tax smart way to give. Life insurance, legacy giving concept number 2. And we'll talk about that. You can give up all the rights to the policy, or you can name the church as a beneficiary. I will say this is not the most helpful for this campaign over the next 2 or 3 years, right? I'm looking around. Nobody looks within 3 years of death's door to me as I look around this room, okay? No man knows our time, right? We don't know what tomorrow holds. But if you have a paid up policy, and let's say you had it because you and your wife said, you know what, we need to have a life insurance policy that covers our mortgage. But now the mortgage is paid off and you have a paid up life insurance policy, that's an asset. That might be the type of thing where you name, of course, your wife as the beneficiary, but maybe the second beneficiary, the alternate beneficiary, is the church. That could be a very significant gift that you say, you know what, we really don't need that protection anymore because the mortgage is paid or the weddings have been paid for. The kids are launched, school's been paid for. We didn't need the life insurance. And so maybe, even if it's a term and there's still time left on the term insurance, you might say, we don't need that much anymore. And maybe considering putting the church as a beneficiary or a percentage beneficiary could be a way to make a very significant gift in case you were to pass away. And so that's giving life insurance. What's the benefit? You get the immediate tax deduction equal. If you give the whole policy, you get an immediate tax deduction equal to the cash surrender value. And there may be some estate tax deductions whenever it's paid at your death, okay? Legacy giving concept number 3. This is what I'd say the number 2 thing that I want you to get away. Remember, the first one was gifting appreciated assets, all right? This is the smartest way to give to this campaign. This is the smartest way to give to your tithe, but it's only for a certain subset of people, okay? So let's go to the next slide. You have to be at least 70 and a half years old. This is an IRA gift, so you have to have an IRA, which is a traditional individual retirement account, not a Roth, a traditional IRA, 70 and a half years old, and you can give up to $100,000 a year. And it counts as your required minimum distribution. So if anyone's in that range with their IRA, they're gonna know what I'm talking about. So what happens with an IRA, I'm making it hard for you. I don't need to move. I'm antsy. But what happens with an IRA is that pre-tax dollars you put into this individual retirement account. It grows throughout your life, and then you pull from it in your retirement years, and that's when you pay taxes, presumably at a lower tax rate than when you were at your highest earning capacity, right? So presumably at a lower tax rate, but you have to pay taxes. The government says, hey, if you get to 70 and a half, you got to start taking money so that you can start paying taxes, okay? They want their money. And so they have something called a required minimum distribution. It's calculated by your custodian, whoever holds your IRA. They can tell you what it is. And you have to take that money out. Some folks will find that they are in the stage of life where their IRA, they're having to take money out of their IRA, they're getting Social Security, they're maybe earning on some of their other investments, their partial ownership in a business that they've stepped away from, all these other areas where they may have some other areas of income. And they either don't need their IRA RMD, and I'll talk about another group in a second. And in that case, giving directly from your IRA to the church, it never comes into your income, and so you do not pay taxes on it. Also, by doing that, it never comes in to your, I'm gonna call it your 1040. I think that's the right. Whenever you file taxes every year. And so it could and probably will help you maximize your standard deduction. So unless you are going over that, which some of us are with our giving and mortgage interest and some things like that where we're going over the standard deduction, but by giving it directly from your IRA, it never comes in, and it has the potential to help cause that standard deduction. Remember, Donald Trump in 2017 tripled it, the standard deduction, and it helps you maximize that to your benefit, okay? So if you're in the stage of life where you have an RMD and you're like, we don't really need that, that's a smart place to give from. Also, if you are in the stage of life where you have to do an RMD, it's better to do your tithing and your giving from your IRA than it is from your bank account. Because if you give it, and every IRA custodian has a form for this now. It's called a qualified charitable distribution. I like to do this. I always like to say, you can do a QCD instead of your RMD from your IRA, right? That sounds smart, but everyone's like, that was confusing. But you can do that charitable gift from your IRA. It never comes to you, and that way the other income that you're getting is taxed potentially at a lower rate, and you're avoiding the income tax on it. So anyone that's in that stage of life with an RMD, I have folks tithing out of that, giving offerings. You should do all your charitable giving out of that if that's available to you. And inevitably, I always get asked, and can I do that with my IRA now? Can I do this with my 401k, 403b, Roth IRA? No, unless it's an IRA and you're 70 and a half years old or more, and you're in that RMD stage of having to draw it out, okay? So I realize that's a certain subset of us, but that is a very, very smart way to give. Let's look at the next slide. I think it's just some of the benefits of it. You're not taxed. Oh, I do want to point out, there's not double dipping. You don't get to give it out of here and count it as a tax deductible gift. You don't get to count it twice. But realize because it never comes in, because it never raises your income, you're still paying, you're essentially getting that tax deductible benefit because it's never part of your income, okay? So, like I said, the two smartest ways to give are, that I'm talking about today, are gonna be that appreciated assets. You can give more, avoid capital gains tax, get full credit for the gift, or if you're in that 70 and a half years old, take it in RMD, start giving from there, including any type of commitment you might want to be part of this Imagine campaign. Number 4, charitable gift annuity. So a couple of these are gonna be, these last 3 are gonna be less a part of how you can give to Imagine right now, but more about, I want you to consider significant gifts that may benefit the church over your lifetime and at your death, okay? So these are smart ways to give and smart ways to plan. So this one's charitable gift annuity. We have a former board member who has set up 35 of these. And it is, and I'm gonna tell you 2, one, he was very successful. And so he's been able to set these up, and these are gonna continue to pay throughout his lifetime and his wife's lifetime to take care of their living. So let me explain kind of what a charitable gift, let's go to the next page, is. It's a transfer of cash or property or whatever. You have to fund the annuity, and then the church, in this case KBF, agrees to pay you a certain sum for the rest of your life. Okay, and usually it's a 2-life charitable gift annuity. Let's go to the next slide. And what's really great about it is that it can be part of your retirement planning to create cash flow. And what happens is you give a gift, and it's measured that about half of it will benefit the church and half of it will benefit you. So you have to have some charitable intent. You want the church to benefit from it. For the rest of your life and your spouse's life, you'll get a payment, and it's guaranteed. Okay, and then when the second of you dies, or if it's a single person, single life annuity, when that person dies, whatever's left, the remainder, the charitable remainder, goes to the church or to any charity, but in this case, we're talking about the church. And so the most brilliant way I've seen someone use this is a fellow, he was a Vietnam War veteran. I love that he turned wood. He was a craftsman, just a tremendous man. He passed away a few years ago, but he had a rental property. Okay, so he had a house, and a lady had rented it for, I think, 30 or 40 years. He had never raised rent on her. And the house was in disrepair. She passed away. He didn't want to repair it. And so he gifted the property into a charitable gift annuity. And so he did 2 things. He took so it had appreciated. So he took that appreciated asset, used that to fund, in this case, is a charitable remainder trust, but for purposes, it's very similar, almost identical to a charitable gift annuity. And his payment for his and his son's life was going to be just about as much as the rent was that he had been receiving on the property. So it didn't change his income, just continued. He got the tax benefit to avoid the capital gains of selling the property. He funded this charitable remainder trust that paid him, and then he passed away. His son is receiving the benefit, and when his son dies, it's going to benefit Oneida Baptist Institute. And one of our Christian high schools that's supported by the Kentucky Baptist Convention. And so he took advantage of the giving an appreciated asset, set up income for life for him and his son, and then also that's going to have a charitable benefit to help the school. And so he put a couple things together to really make it smart. He's basically getting his rent continuously. He doesn't have to repair the property. He didn't have to sell it. He didn't have to do anything special, and that income will continue. So, yeah, you can see that fund with appreciated assets. You get a current tax deduction. If his house burned down or if everyone moved off that street in Elizabethtown, he could have, there was some market risk. He avoids that, and he gets those payments for life. And so that's a charitable gift annuity or a charitable remainder trust. The other thing that the next one I want to talk about, and actually I'm going to do a quick aside and just talk about estate planning just for a second, okay? Remember that chart we had up there with the umbrella, the 91% and the 9%? The biggest financial decision you and I and 98% of us in this room will make is with our estate. When the second of Elizabeth and I die, that will be the most significant transfer of wealth or transition of capital that we will ever make a decision over, okay? And at the foundation, we want you to take care of your family. We also want you to seriously consider walking faithfully, just like you have through all your life, being a tither, being a giver, being generous towards the church. What can you include for the church? Charity is included in my estate plan. I was at another church doing a presentation like this, and they had a deacon get up, and he talked about he has 3 kids, and he split in his estate 4 ways, 25, 25, 25, 25, and the church was that 4th child. I'm not saying you need to give 25. I'm not saying you need to give 10. I'm not saying you need to give 200, but 2 things. I encourage you to give something, and number 2, it communicates something to those who you are leaving behind. It talks about where your priorities are. And it is a tremendous opportunity for our churches. Our universities, University of Kentucky, Western Kentucky University, they are taking very good advantage of estate plans. And people are given to these schools big amounts. And it is my hope that more and more Kentucky Baptists will include their church in their estate plan. With that said, let's talk about number 5. And if you have questions about estate planning, please come 11 o'clock, room 204. I will be there. Call me, 502-489-3. It feels like an infomercial when I do it that way. Order now, order the next 30 minutes, and 3 equal payments of 502-489-3426 is my phone number. But part of that is either now in your lifetime or as part of your bequest. It can be an endowment. So if you'll go to the next slide, it's a fund that's established. We've all heard about it, endowed chairs at the schools. And only the earnings or the distributions go to the church or charity, and it can be designated or undesignated. But you guys know my preference now. But, an endowment would be wonderful for children's ministry. An endowment would be great for missions. An endowment would be great for facilities. We're even seeing our churches set up endowments and encouraging people to give to them. And those are the 3 areas we're seeing it. General endowment, just essentially undesignated. Missions endowment, so that the church can just give to missions forever from a growing corpus of an endowment. And capital or facilities or grounds, facilities and grounds is what one of our churches call it. But those are the 3 buckets that we even see our churches encouraging their givers to help them build as a body, okay? I think there's another slide, and you get an income tax deduction just like any other gift. And if you give, once again, appreciated assets, you can avoid that capital gains. And then the last one, actually I kind of jumped ahead because here it is. Number 6 is make a bequest. I guess I didn't need to do that side because here it is, right? And if you go to the next slide and name your church in your will. You can name us as a foundation if you want to set up an endowment or if you want us to manage the funds. I had one of our leaders at the Kentucky Baptist Convention come to me, and he wanted to give to his church, he wanted to give to the cooperative program, and he wanted to give to his university. And so what they ended up doing is they're just giving a gift to the Kentucky Baptist Foundation, and they've set up a 2-page instruction that tells us what to do with any of the funds that come. And so it gives him the chance, if he were to retire and go to a different church, he could change that. Or so there is some additional flexibility with essentially what is a deferred gift agreement with the Kentucky Baptist Foundation. There's that additional flexibility. You just give to one place, and then you would have told us where you wanted to go, and we can do that. And then also we can handle endowments. I think there's one more slide. Yeah, can be designated for a particular program. I've talked about that. So I really am open to questions. I don't know if, so I'll take just a couple minutes here, maybe 5-10 minutes to answer any questions. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So if you're not 70 and a half, but you have a survivor IRA, can you give out of that in the same way you were describing, or is that a different animal?
That's a different animal. Yeah, and you have to pay taxes on that over 10 years. That's why I was actually talking to a family member, and he's going to leave a significant amount to charity. And I was like, you need to give it from your IRA. You need to give it from your IRA. Sat down with a gentleman. He said, I got all this money from my dad, but it was from his IRA, and I have to pay taxes on it. Because once again, remember, those taxes were deferred all throughout life. So even when you die and one of your kids, let's say you leave it to your 3 children, they all have to pay taxes on that IRA money, and they have to pay all those taxes within 10 years. And of course, if they get $300,000 and they owe I'm going to say 33% because it's easy math, $100,000 in taxes, they still get $200,000. That's still amazing. Leaving your IRA to your children is not a bad thing. But if you are going to do any charitable giving, to do it from your IRA and as part of your estate planning is the smart place to do it. Instead of giving $300,000 to your kids and taking $300,000 out of your house to give to charity, you should have just given that $300,000 from the IRA, let them sell the house, split that among the kids, and guess what? They don't have to pay taxes on the money from the house or the other things in the estate, unless it's over $24-25 million estate, okay? That's probably not a lot of us in this room. If it is, you probably have a financial planner, I hope you do, that's helping you make smart decisions. But instead of taking money out of the sale of the house, giving it from your IRA would have saved your kids would have ended up with more money in the long run, right? Kind of thing. Any questions? Say hand. Yes.
Okay, so for the annuity, and especially the example that you gave, what happens with that property? How is it, financially beneficial? We don't need to take it over?
So, very good question. So what she asked is, when a property is given to the church, and this is really good, or given to Oneida, or in the case, I gave that example where that gentleman gave us his rental home that had appreciated. What happens to the property? So we have a real estate committee that, one, decides if we're going to accept the property at all. Don't accept a gas station as a charitable gift, and you do need to be careful when accepting real estate. Sometimes they're just trying to dump it on charity. And you can imagine with a gas station, there's like all this super fund and cleanup and stuff that makes it where it's actually a liability, not an asset, okay? So their first is being careful with the property. Our standard operating procedure is to liquidate any appreciated asset. I will say that same gentleman gave another gift, and we did hold it for about a year and a half because there was a renter, and we let the rent agreement expire. So we did hold on to it and let that income come in as investment income. But as soon as that expired, we sold the property, and that renter ended up, I think it might have even been sold to the renter in that case. But with stock, we've had, I was telling Joni, right, Joni? That we have a fund at the foundation where you can give stock to this church, no extra cost to the church, but our policy is we liquidate it and we send the cash to the church, okay? We don't hold on to individual stocks. We have our investment policy for all of our funds, but we sell the property and liquidate it, turn it into cash, and either invest it. In the case of a charitable gift annuity, we put it into our equity and fixed fund. It's 65-35 split, investment policy stuff. Rarely, almost never, do we hold on to the asset. We own one gas and oil investment in all that $280 million. We own probably about another $10,000 or $20,000 in random other illiquid assets that we couldn't sell. But all that other $280 million we liquidated and then invested according to our investment policy. So could a church or could Oneida or could Clear Creek, who is getting some property near them, could they choose to keep that and utilize it? Yes. So there's no obligation to liquidate an asset, but depending on what it is, where it is, and the potential uses for it, oftentimes liquidating it and investing it would be the right decision. Are you tracking? Okay. So, but yeah, I mean, if our next door neighbor gifted us property or something, we might say, hey, that'd be a great parsonage, or, oh, that's, let's turn that into some offices, or, I didn't come in this side, I came in that side. If there's a big property that really is going to be a great place for us to build, future, maybe we do hold on to the real estate. But for the most part, I would recommend a church, you're probably going to liquidate it. And you don't want to be a landlord, typically, and so liquidating it. Other questions? I've just had the best day already. You guys have no idea how blessed I was during service. I was just, I don't know, I must have been in a good place because it just really ministered to me. And I know that you guys are going to continue to be ministering the gospel to so many. And I'm excited for this campaign for y'all. So I am going to be available. I'm going to head over to 204 here in a minute. Anyone that wants to connect with me, ask specific questions for your planning, I would love to spend some time with you, or you can even reach out to me. That contact information's, I didn't hand out the sheet, did I? I never handed it out. So if you guys will just grant me, I'll give you a sheet. It has contact information on it and kind of a summary of the things we talked about. Okay, other than that, Pastor, you want to close us in prayer?
Why don't we express our gratitude to Austin for coming and being with us? Yeah. All right, let's pray together. Father, it's been good to learn about wise stewardship of all that you put in our hands. We appreciate Austin and his taking time to be with us today. We pray that your Spirit would guide us as we seek to steward faithfully, both as individuals and families and as a congregation. So we want ultimately to honor you, the one who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and you who's given your all for us. So help us to do that well, and to be a part in the gospel being advanced around the world, so that the Lamb who was slain would receive the reward of his suffering from every nation, people, and tribe and tongue. We love you and thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.